very sort of mixed response from Rangers fans today, particularly when it comes to Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. Graham says Thelwell looked like a rabbit in the headlights, get rid. Craigie says Thelwell and Stewart need to go. Julie says you could see Thelwell acting up when asked about his son. I think that's another clip we've got, which I'll maybe come back to in just a minute or two. Rangers Easy OK says, I've been here before, except with Martin, who we thought was a cabbage. Rohl spoke really well and will get firmly behind him. The majority will. James says he feels better.
Rangers fans should, Dan. I mean, they owe it to their club. They owe it to Danny Rohl. They really should. But if it doesn't start well, I don't know how long the patience and the goodwill will survive if he's tainted by sort of the Kevin Thelwell shadow.
James, as you can see on your screen, says, feel better about Rohl, no forgiveness for Stewart or Thelwell. They need to go and Thelwell can take his son with him. John says, a German who gets it and he's been in the door a day. Aye, right. Margaret says, big mistake. We should have brought Graham Souness back. And Derek also says, Souness destroyed Celtic and he was like 33. I think very different Rangers and Celtic back then, to be fair.
He was also 1986 33, which is actually about 53. Big national. Back then, they were made differently back then.
No, that's true.
They were living in their mum's basements.
Scott in Berlin says, I'm very happy with Rohl. Highly sought off here in German football. I'm sure he will get us back to winning form with a kick up the backside for his team. And finally, Rangers Easy OK says, none of us are asked Keith if it's in the blue room or if he wears a suit and brogues. All we care about is if he's capable of putting a run of wins together and getting us back on track.
No, fair enough. But I just feel there's a concentrated and calculated effort to try and move Rangers in a different direction. And I'm not sure that all the fans will be just as, happy to go along with that. I think, look, this is all going to be determined by how well or otherwise Danny Rohl does in the job. But there is a feeling, and I would subscribe to it, that, a club like Rangers and a club like Celtic, this isn't MK Dons. It's not Leicester City. These clubs are different animals. They're different beasts and they require different solutions. And I'm firmly of the belief that Celtic have always been at their most powerful and most successful when they've got a real manager in charge of the shop. And it's always been the same at Rangers as well. And I'm yet to see an example of where, diluting the importance of the guy that's actually front and centre of the thing is a good move. I've yet to see an example of it. I find the rules in Glasgow are just a little bit different. Maybe that's our fault and the rest of the world has moved on, but it is the way it is, in my view.
I think I mentioned there that we maybe have another clip of Kevin Thelwell getting asked about Robbie Thelwell joining Rangers. I know we've been on Rangers for a while, but maybe we'll listen to this and maybe move on. Sound good?
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the points that you've been criticised by from fans is the appointment of your son to the recruitment team. Has that been uncomfortable to hear, and why did you feel that he was the best man for this position?
Yeah, I think it's always uncomfortable to hear, and optically I think we all agreed when we made this step to appoint Robbie that he was going to be seen in a particular way. But the reality of the situation is that we want to bring the very best talent here to Rangers Football Club. My view on Robbie's career, Robbie's situation is he doesn't need my help in football. He's worked at Aston Villa as a senior scout. He then moved to Norwich City as head of scouting and then got promoted to player pathways manager. And before we recruited him, 2 Premier League clubs wanted to take him. Dan Purdy, who's the technical director, who he will work for, wanted to take him to Everton Football Club. When I was there, I told him that shouldn't be the case and I didn't think he was ready. But when the situation came around again and Dan wanted to take him again, it was very difficult to say no. What we did do, right at the very start of that process, was to talk to Patrick and Andrew and Parag and the board and talk to them about this situation. I was extremely transparent about that's what Dan wanted to do. And I think Robbie probably went through a more rigorous process than probably anybody else who's employed by this football club, truth be known. What I do know is that he will work 25/8 to bring success for this football club, and him and Dan work very closely together and work very well together. And I'm looking forward to him proving that he's going to be an excellent employee for Rangers.
What, 25/8? I've never heard that before, guys. 25/8.
It's a new one.
Sounds like a shift at the record these days. There's no button to hit for the overtime either.
Look, we need to move on to Celtic, but just very quickly, you can see from the comments, Keith, regardless how they spoke today, Thelwell and Stewart haven't convinced anyone, it seems, as far as Rangers fans go.
But you know the crazy thing, and this is the bit that just doesn't make any logical sense to me. He sat there, he said, I know how bad this looks. Oh my God, the optics are just terrible. It's my son. It just so happens that the best qualified guy for this job is in the spare room playing in his Xbox now. He's 26. The optics, they are worse than horrible. They are catastrophically bad. And yet somehow, in their wisdom, they said, right, we'll go and have a conversation. And the guys, the big brains in the room all agreed, yeah, do you know what, we'll just go for it. Now, that is bad for me because it tells me that they really don't care about the reaction of the supporters. And that's not a great place to be in. And I'm sorry, but on no basis as a 26-year-old kid with a couple of kind of down-the-ladder scouting positions under his belt, the best qualified man to be head of recruitment at Rangers. It's just, you're asking me to believe in Santa Claus here. I'm sorry.